Parents forced me to cancel my engagement party for my golden child brother's graduation. Now they're mad because relatives chose my party. I, 28M, have a younger brother, Leon, 26M, who recently graduated from community college, I might add. About the same time, I became involved with Nina, 28F, my high school love. We have been together for 10 years, and it was about time that we made this official. 2 weeks ago, I proposed to her and decided to invite a party to our house honoring our engagement last weekend. 5 days after the invites were distributed, last night the party was hosted. The drama surrounding all of this has been so bizarre and chaotic that I have no idea how to make sense of it. It all began when I invited my close family, my parents and brother, who contacted me and demanded that I postpone this celebration. For the life of me, I couldn't understand why they would ask me to do such a thing. When I told them I wasn't going to, they informed me they had decided to throw my brother a celebration for his graduation. Naturally, it also occurred to be the day of my engagement party. Although they hadn't yet sent the invites, the same evening I sent mine they were intending to do so. Now, they said, at least one of us had to back off and allow the other honor their significant event. We share a family, hence 2 festivities on the same day would cause a lot of strife and we wanted nothing like that. The cards are out on the table. My family is not especially close. I get along with the rest of my family, but not with my parents or Leon. This is why they were not aware of the fact that I was organizing an engagement party on the same day they were scheduled to be celebrating a graduation. On rare occasions, like when we congratulated one another upon learning of his graduation and when they learned of my engagement, we do communicate. On birthdays and holidays, we wish each other well. But that is about it. It was therefore quite clear in my mind what I intended to do when they asked me to call off my engagement celebration for their day, and I said no right away. Though I mean not to discredit Leon, I believe his graduating from community college at 26 is not as significant as my engagement to Nina, the love of my life, with whom I have been with for the past 10 years. To be honest, right now I hardly give a damn about if I'm undercutting him. I had already sent out the invitations, so I made it quite plain to my parents that I was not going to postpone my event. Since they hadn't yet sent out their invites, they might postpone their thing if they so wanted. Though my parents were not delighted about it and neither was Leon, I thought it was a really decent proposition. Given my brother has always been the golden child, it was not unexpected they were behaving this way. Every small deed he accomplished growing up had to be honored. For example, I recall having this first-time emotion when I was just 7 years old as I knew that on my 5th birthday the celebration had been somewhat quiet. It had simply been my parents, a couple of their acquaintances, and a few of my neighborhood friends as my parents felt I wouldn't even remember the party when I grew up. On the other hand, when my brother was 5, they went all out and actually leased a space so they could throw him a themed party. All I got when I graduated middle school was a congratulation, and a pat on the back. Leon had still another celebration after he finished middle school. It was the same when I started college, graduated from high school, and later on from college. I received no more than a few words of encouragement. I had sort of figured out after middle school that they preferred Leon far more than they did me. I thus started separating myself from them as soon as I graduated from high school and went out for college. Since they were still paying for my education bills, I did not cut them off entirely. But, I sort of stopped talking to them as soon as I started a job. Every time I saw them I was polite to them. But I neglected to maintain in touch and they neither expected me to. Neither of us objected to the circumstances. We had adjusted as we felt was suitable. Leon and I never got along either. We used to argue or dig at each other all the time growing up, and by the time we were in high school we had concluded that we would be better off not talking. To be honest, he is rather different from me and not in the nice sort of difference. My parents treated him right from his early years, which has made him spoiled, entitled and very bratty. Everyone who knows our family would agree, I believe, that he is not exactly the easiest person to be around. Though he was really the troublemaker in high school and nearly got expelled several times, my parents never appeared to have an issue with whatever he did. When he told them he wanted to join a firm a few of his buddies had founded with a revolutionary idea, graphic printed t-shirts for kids and teens, they said nothing at all. That's exciting. Basically, it did not go well. After it failed and he ended up squandering our parents' investment money, which he also received a free pass for, he decided he wanted to go to college. He had to stick to community college and earn a degree in business as his grades were insufficient for it and he had taken rather a few gap years. Now my parents asked me to call off my engagement party so they could celebrate his graduation. Anybody in my place would have done the same, hence there was nothing callous about what I was doing. My parents started acting on the phone as if I was the worst person on the planet for not postponing my party. They claimed that although they had always known I was against my brother, this was simply too much. Though I wanted no drama before my engagement party, I tried to reason with them. Unfortunately, there was simply no conversation with them. I became annoyed at last and told them they were free to have their party on the same day as mine, but I was not adjusting anything to fit Leon or her. I then blocked them. Leon neither bothered to get in touch with me nor gave me an opportunity to discuss any of this. In any case, I did not hear from them for the next 4 days following our dispute. But from many of my relatives, I also learned that they had also gotten invited to Leon's graduation celebration, which fell on the same day my engagement party was taking place. They lacked direction on what to do. I refrained from saying anything for the first 2 days since I truly wanted to keep anyone from entering the conflict between my family and me. I respected that they chose this. It was their decision. I wouldn't worry if my family attended any gathering they desired. They were free to. Deep down, I would obviously be rather offended if a few people turned up for my party, but I couldn't make them do anything. 3 days ago though, I discovered that my parents were following the exact reverse strategy. My cousin informed me that since I have been nothing but terrible to them, my parents reportedly had been advising everyone not to attend my engagement party. Apparently, they had accused me of hosting my engagement party on the same day they had decided to host my brother's graduation party for deliberate intent. After they told me about it, I chose to send invites on the same day for my party and totally stunned them even though they claimed they had been talking about this idea for a few weeks. I figured two could play this game if they were going to badmouth me since they were trying so very hard. Luckily, I didn't have to fabricate such falsehoods to make them look awful. I basically told everyone the truth. Saying that I knew my parents had most likely been trying to badmouth me and offering folks a very distorted view of things, I messaged everyone invited to the party. On the phone call the other day, I therefore recounted what we had discussed and informed them my version of events, that which was the truth. I also mentioned that from my early years, I had to cope with the reality that Leon always got celebrated regardless of his actions and that I had been cool with it thus far. But now it was unfair of my parents to expect me to postpone the celebration of my own accomplishments only to suit them and their golden kid. Now, if any of my family still chose to believe them over me, they were free to do so. But I would truly appreciate it if they did not bother to maintain in touch with me after that. It was a quite direct and to the point argument. Though most of my family merely texted me back to let me know they could understand where I was coming from and that they were on my side, I was somewhat worried about what the reaction to that would be. They had seen personally the kind of treatment I had gotten from my parents straight from my early years. Like a few of my cousins and some of my uncles and aunts who were on the younger side, my family members who belonged to the same generation as I were informed that they would be attending my celebration. Since most of them had RSVP'd, yes, Nina and I were really content. Last night we had an absolutely great time at the party. Surprisingly, almost everyone who had been invited turned there, and I don't even believe it presented a problem for any of them. People informed me they sensed something was wrong about what they were saying when they started getting messages from my parents and refused to believe I would do as underhanded as what they accused me of. I was glad people understood that I was not the type of person who purposefully organized a party on the same day as my brother, simply to take center stage. Furthermore, many people told me they were happy I was not caving in to my parents' expectations as I was right about how unfairly I had been treated all my life. Therefore, not only did I get to celebrate my engagement with my friends and relatives, but also I discovered that, with regard to my parents and brother, most of my family members shared my views. The celebration was generally rather successful, and until this morning I was quite content. My parents and Leon visited me right away when I woke up, the last person I wanted to see. I told them to go away and honestly had no intention of allowing them in when they started ringing the doorbell. My dad countered that they would not be leaving anywhere until they had a conversation with me and that they were here to talk to me. I wanted to contact the cops, but Nina persuaded me to just talk to them once and wrap things up once and for all. I thus decided to let them in, and my folks started throwing charges at me as soon as they did. Since I had only woken up a few minutes earlier, I was somewhat surprised and somewhat confused. Yet I had chosen to act since they were accusing me of being rather jealous of Leon. They revealed that hardly anyone had come up for their party, and even those who had showed up left within a few minutes after some polite small talk to be able to make it to my party. They claimed to have heard the message I had conveyed to our cousins. I said that although at first I did not want to do something like that, they had pushed my hand by trying to badmouth me and lie about me. Still, given their loud charges, it felt as though my remarks were not even audible. They thought I was doing all of this only to constantly monopolize the attention and out of jealousy of Leon. I was, they said, separating the family. I suppose Nina came to see after some time that she had no use in trying to hold a conversation with them as they were obviously not polite enough for that. She stepped in and stated she would phone the police should they not leave that very quickly. They left then, but they were still calling me a lot of nasty names. The window shook for a good few seconds when Leon even slammed the door of our house so forcefully as he closed it. Though I chose to let it go, I half-mindedly called him back to let him have it. Like Nina, I was fairly irate. We had blocked all of them, hence an hour after they left we got a message from an unidentified number, probably a friend or someone else's number they were using. The message indicated that although all we said and did, we were still family and that they were rather let down that I had decided to have my engagement party on the same day as Leon's celebration, as this was the one thing I could have let him have. They claimed they were merely attempting to provide a good picture of him, even if he was ashamed of his fact that he was already 26 years old upon graduating from college. Besides that, his company had recently failed a few years ago, so he had little reason to rejoice and they were merely attempting to make him happy. I never even considered it in such terms though. They thus claimed to be rather let down and expected me to be more mature about this. They also apologized for trying to discredit me, but they claimed they had no other option as they truly wanted this celebration to go off without a hitch. I have been truly perplexed ever since I got that letter. Though I understand this is classic manipulation on one hand, what if they are truly sorry? We are here asking, am I the asshole, AITA, for having my engagement party on the same day as my brother's graduation party? Nina is very torn as well. Edit. Some of you seem to have a problem with the fact that my relatives did not step up for me and try to do something when they had always known that my parents did not treat my brother and me equally. In their defense, I would just like to say that they did all they could. They always tried to be there for me and were always nice and kind to me. I'm pretty sure that a few of them even tried to speak to my parents to make them realize that the way they were treating me and Leon so differently was not fair to either of us. But my parents did not care, and honestly, what more could they have done? It's not like it was a crime bad enough to warrant demanding custody of me. That would have just been absurd, and I don't think anybody wanted to do that either since they also have their lives and families to think about. Besides, I was doing just fine. I generally stopped having expectations from my parents after a certain point, so I do not mind that they put my brother up on a pedestal and did not seem to care much about me. As long as everything was paid for, I didn't care. I'm on good terms with the rest of my family, and I don't mind the fact that most of them are on good terms with my parents and my brother as well. I haven't made them choose. I had just said that if they chose not to attend my party, then we would have had a problem. But honestly, all of them did attend, and I don't mind anymore if they continue to be on good terms with my parents and Leon. I made that very clear at the party as well. Anyway, most of you were questioning why I even bothered to keep in touch with the rest of my family, and yeah, this is why. I just don't think that it's that deep. This is between my parents, my brother, and me, not them. I don't want to drag them into this for no reason. Update 1. After reading most of the responses on my initial post, I concluded that I had nothing to regret a few days later. After emailing them that I did not feel like talking to them anymore and would really appreciate it if they remained away from me from now on, I kept my parents and Leon blocked as well as the number they had contacted me from earlier. I have not heard from them for the past 3 days and none of my relatives had anything to say either. Still, today was really different. My mother visited us just before Nina and I were ready to head off for work. This was only her. My dad and Leon were not with her. She is generally much more subdued than they are. I chose to invite her in since I felt that we might at last have a civilized conversation like grown-up adults rather than engage in a yelling fight. She told me once she was inside that she was here to chat to both of us, hence Nina had to join the discussion as well. We sat there and then she began by stating she truly regretted whatever occurred lately and wanted to apologize on behalf of all 3 of them. To be honest, I don't really count that as an apology since, had all 3 of them wanted to apologize, they ought to have turned up together and done so. It is not enough just to send my mother apologizing notes. Still, I said nothing about it. Then my mother continued, saying she was still really offended over one item that had happened on their most recent visit even though she realized they had screwed up. She stated she valued our 10-year relationship and thought Nina was like her own daughter, but on their last visit Nina had threatened to call the cops on my father. Now she thought they deserved an apology for that since, no matter what, this was between family and Nina wasn't family yet. Nina had been shouting in my dad's face, threatening to call the police, and had even told him he had to leave our house right then. That had been rather rude. Now, since they were willing to atone for what they had done, she expected the 2 of us to also apologize since we had also treated them disrespectfully, Nina for yelling at my parents, and me for letting it go and passively observing while my fiancé yelled at my parents. For a moment neither of us knew what to say. Then I became rather agitated by what was being said, so I informed my mother that although I valued her gesture of showing up and apologizing on behalf of my family, it was entirely pointless. Since it was just my mom, I had genuinely thought that she would at least make sense and try to right things. They still couldn't let go of their great ego though. She had just wasted half an hour of our time, and I informed her straightforwardly that we did not need a moral lecture from her. Since Nina had arrived at our house uninvited, I told her she was exactly within her rights to shout at whoever she chose. We had opened the door because we honestly thought we could have a conversation with them and clear the air, but they had shown us wrong by acting like lunatic persons and yelling in our faces as soon as the door was open to them. More crucially, it made little difference to me whether or not they regarded Nina as family. To be honest, she was my family. Even more so than they were. Therefore, neither of us owed them any apologies, and right now I wouldn't want one from them either. Now that she had said whatever she came to say and we had listened to her out, I informed my mother we were done and she had to leave. She refused to get up though, and declared she would not tolerate this kind of behavior from me. Since I was not even interested in communicating with my family anymore, it really started to get a little annoying. I ended up telling my mother that I really did not care what type of behavior she would take from me. I had separated myself from them anyhow once I graduated from college, and now, following all that had transpired, I just wanted never to talk to them ever again. I wanted her out of my life, hence I was fine with it if she disliked this kind of behavior. She did not have to put up with me. The same went for my dad and brother. After a little argument, she informed me that they were leaving now since I had made it quite plain that I did not want them in my life, and she was going to make sure I never got to see them ever once again. I assured her I was good with it, and she departed at last. We arrived late for work by a lot, but at least this interaction will help to bring an end to all of this since, to be honest, I'm sick of my family. Every time any of them show up at my house, I just call the cops. That's it. Update 2. Hey, 3 weeks have passed since my last report. Nina and I had quite anticipated this entire thing to have blown over by now. But last night, my folks decided to pay Nina's parents a visit. As I mentioned, we have been together for 10 years. So, even our families know each other really well, and Nina's parents reside a few blocks from mine. They thus showed up at their house around 10 in the night to discuss our children and their terrible behavior. Nina's parents first didn't know what to do since they heard about our recent arguments, but they let them in finally since they wanted to be polite. Nevertheless, they began moaning about how they didn't even know where they had gone wrong with parenting me and were so unhappy that I had turned out this way, whereas Leon was the model of what a wonderful kid should be right away. They began discussing how he was still living with them since he did not want to forsake them in their old age, yes, as if that were the real reason and not because he lacked the means to live by himself. Neither do my parents ask him to pay for any other bills or expenses, they let him live rent-free. Still, they continued for a few minutes, endlessly praising Leon and disparaging me as nothing but a disappointment. By then Nina's parents knew they were most likely a bit drunk. Then they began discussing Nina and the manner she had allegedly offended them the last time they had seen her. She had always been a shy and quiet child, thus they were rather surprised since they informed her parents they did not mean to be nasty but they had never expected Nina to behave this way with them. But she had started displaying her actual hues ever since she got the ring on her finger. Still, they seemed there because they had a scheme in mind. Not too far off, they would be able to bring us into line and increase our respect for our parents. Their idea was a great one. Presumably Nina's parents and neither their parents would be willing to pay for our wedding, so we would be left with no other choice except to apologize for our actions and try to be better children to them. We have always had a decent relationship with Nina's parents, hence I find it strange why they would bring them into any of this. They're, the word, oh yes, normal, unlike my folks, who are as crazy as they come. After mine left, Nina's parents phoned us and updated us on what had happened. Though I really wanted to be furious with them, the whole event was so strange that we all ended up laughing over it. I'm quite happy that she and her parents did not find an issue in my parents' behavior since otherwise I may have been in trouble and once more I would have had to apologize for my parents' activities. My prospective in-laws, however, are really laid back and informed me I had no need to worry about any of it. They did not mind as they knew that both of my parents were not right and had known them for a long period. The following time my parents came up, they would simply refuse to let them in. Still, I'm happy we could straighten that out without any problems. I simply hope they get the hint and avoid bothering Nina's parents once they don't get any reaction from her. Still, just for good measure, I'm going to unblock them and warn them not to harass anyone else in the family. Or, I will be compelled to go legal after action. Though I'm not sure what I would do, I'm rather confident they will be scared even if I simply lie about it, therefore maybe they may back off. Right now that's the strategy. See whether they attempt something humorous or not. Update 3. Hey, I last blogged over a year ago and I haven't heard from my brother or parents in practically that long. It has been indeed the best year of my life. 2 months ago, Nina and I also got married. Everyone I love was there for the wedding. We had an amazing time, and a few weeks back we at last came back from our honeymoon. My parents did not wish me well, and neither did Leon. Part of me is happy since otherwise I would have had to deal with them. I'm just loving married life right now, and I am looking forward to spending the rest of my life with her. I'm not really bothered about anything as long as she is at my side.